Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's episode 92 of Bucs UK TV. It's the pre-draft review. If you're watching this, there are only a few days to go until we find out what number 19 means for the Bucs. I am joined by Gary, Tim, and David.
Evening all.
Hi there.
And it goes with the warning that you're about to get the amateurs version of the draft preview. None of us claimed to have any Mel Kiper-esque abilities, although actually turns out he doesn't know what he's talking about either. So that is the wonderful, wacky world of the draft. So the Bucs have got some holes to fill, haven't they? Let's start off talking about who we're going to try and replace and where we think the needs are, and then the overall the strategy. So kind of Tim and Gary, maybe the names that you think we're trying to replace. Who are the players that have gone that we think that leaves us with a problem?
For me, the first one is Donovan Smith.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
You build from the trenches, and that's not the biggest loss, but the biggest hole to fill.
Yeah. It all begins in the trenches.
I absolutely agree with that. And potentially, but I hope not, Shaq Barrett. You know, we hope he's going to come back and be as good as he was, but, you know,
no guarantees.
No guarantees at all. So,
like all of us, he's not getting any younger.
Absolutely. So, you know, if he's not going to be the player he was, then he'll be a massive loss as well.
And Tim, whose jersey that you're wearing?
I'm wearing Devon White's LSU college shirt in the hope that the gentleman is still with us post Friday evening. You never know. If he's still with us Friday evening and the first and second rounds have gone, he should be with us next season.
I think Jason, to slightly paraphrase Jason Light, the guy's not for trading.
And it's what his trade value would actually be, to be truthful.
Yeah. But going into the draft, you're going to say that anyway to bump any effort up. If we were open to a trade, you know, we've got to drive the value up if there is a potential anyway.
And if they get an offer that blows them away, of course he'll go. I mean, it's not that hard a position to replace, is it? But they've got to get that offer that blows them away. I mean, apparently they're going to, if he goes at the end, or if he goes now, we get a third-round compensatory pick, don't we, next year? So it's got to be better than a third rounder, or else there's no point in doing it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The price has got to be right. We won't lose anything by holding on to him 1 year.
No.
We should probably also mention some chap, Tom Brady. Tom Brady. He's been let go. Couldn't make the roster.
Who was that?
Blaine Gabbert as well, as we know. So we've got another QB in Baker Mayfield. We've got in Trask we trust. We hope he's Trask and not trash. So I presumably, do you guys think quarterback is somewhere we might be tempted?
Well, we're going to need a couple of quarterbacks, aren't we, from somewhere? Otherwise, Mayfield and Trask are going to be awfully tired come the first game of the season. They always pour in camp.
Training camp arms, but a lot of teams only take 2 on the roster now. The Bucs have been the outliers with 3 in recent years.
Yeah, but you're going to have 4 there through practice, aren't you? And then, you know, the cuts will come towards the end. And, you know, there's perhaps 4 or 5 reasonable quarterbacks. And I think they're likely to be taken before 19. So I think we might take one in the late rounds just to.
Well, we'll come on to think about
or even undrafted
picks. Yeah, I think we'll run through the players that are in the thing. But I think, in terms of need, I mean, so we definitely need some camp arms. That's arms in camp, not camp arms. Just to be clear, I don't want to. Something might get lost in translation. So let's think about where the Bucs are picking. So we've got first rounder at 19, second rounder at 50. So that's 2 players in the top 50. That's not too shabby. We've got a third round pick, but nothing in the 4th, 2 in the 5th, 3 in the 6th, like they're going out of fashion, and then once in the 7th. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks across 7 rounds. I mean, the first thing that you think about all the trading is sort of trading up, trading down, trading left, trading right. David, kind of, do you think we'll end up bumping up or down?
I don't think necessarily we'll trade up. I think actually our needs are so great that we actually need as many picks as we can. There's always a potential we could trade down and get a couple more picks. The difficulty is that we're in that position 19 on the first round, where actually a lot of those key players have gone that people have got, and who's really going to want to trade with us from then? Someone's going to be really close that they've got an eye on, and they're desperate to get that one player. Yeah, I think there's potential to trade down later on, definitely.
Tim, would you shuffle about a bit or stick where you are?
Well, we shuffled about a bit a couple of years ago, and it worked really well. We moved one spot up to claim Tristan Wirfs. I think it would be that type of trade we might move us up to. There's talk of us going up for Will Levis and so on. I don't see a quarterback coming to Tampa. I don't see any of the top 5 coming to Tampa, to be honest. The top 4 will be gone. And then you've got Hendon Hooker, who I'm afraid is already 25 and is going to be 1 year away from playing. He's not going to solve our problem in the first instance. If we're going to take a first-round quarterback, you want him to beat out Mayfield and Trask in the first instant. So I just don't see that happening.
Well, you've taken us on to quarterback, so let's stick with that. You mentioned Will Levis. You mentioned Hendon Hooker. Do you think either of those could be on the cards? It sounds like no. I mean, Gary, what do you think about the quarterback situation? If we want camp arms, are we going to try and make it count, or are they just for making up numbers?
They'll be making up numbers. It'll be the usual thing of 2 on the roster. It'll be Mayfield and Trask. They'll keep 1 on the practice squad and another camp arm who will be flipping burgers, as Joe Bucs fan would say, come September. In terms of trading up, the problem with trading up is what you have to give up to trade up. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, we gave up a 4th-round pick for that 1 spot move to get Tristan Wirfs. Now, he's worth it all day long, but you need to hit on the pick if you move up. Trading back to get a few extra ones, yeah, without a doubt. I think it depends on whether there's, 2 or 3 players that they really want that are still there at 19 that they think will still be there at 24 or 5 or whatever it is that they trade to, assuming they can find someone to trade with. As for the quarterbacks, Dave was right. I think all the good ones will be gone, and Hooker, he apparently was pretty good, but he's not going to play this year, is he? So it's effectively a wasted pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing is, I think the early half of the first round is going to see a lot of tackles and a lot of quarterbacks. If we feel that we're running out of quality tackles, then we might need to dive in. But other than that, I don't see us making a move.
No, I would agree, Dave. It could be the worst situation all over again. So we'll see what happens, but no quarterback for us.
A lot of the mock drafts see a sort of a mid-table rush on tackles. I have seen that, and I think it feels like 19 could be a little bit last chance. So I guess a quick straw poll. You're picking at 19, let's say. Do you pick for need, or do you pick the best player available at 19?
I would pick for need, to be truthful. Our need genuinely starts at left tackle or right tackle, depending on what they want to do with Wirfs. They could draft a left tackle and leave him in his comfortable spot, or the swap has been thrown around in the press. And then,
okay. So Tim says need. David?
I mean, there is the argument that we need so many pieces across the board that actually we go for the best player on the board. But we got burnt a bit last time, didn't we? OJ Howard was glowing there. We couldn't resist, leave him alone. There's no guarantee in a draft, so just stick to your guns and go for the player we really need. So,
position of need. Gary, you agree? You're nodding?
Yeah, I do. It's in a way, it's both, because you take the best player in the position of need that you have. And as the guys have said, we've got so many needs. It's left tackle being the obvious one, or right tackle if they move Wirfs across.
So we'll come on to talk about the positions we think of need, and we'll break that down. But the reason I asked that sort of best player available versus needed, because there's been a couple of instances, I think sort of 2 weeks ago as opposed to 1 week ago, where they were sort of running, the top running back whose name I've suddenly is exited my brain.
Bijan Robinson.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's been a couple where I saw him dropping to 19 because everyone's saying, "Oh, the running back position's devalued." But I mean, I'm not sure I'd like to see us drafting a running back.
We've already got a couple of running backs who can run up the backside of the guard, so we don't need them. And no, in fairness to Robinson, you watch him play in college, he is outstanding. But there's running backs down in the second, third round. Watch your boy Jameer Gibbs from USC and so on. That's, if you're going to pick in the second round, that could be a type of player to look at.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we had a more mobile quarterback, it'd be interesting. But we've got to protect the quarterbacks we got there at the minute.
Yeah.
True. Okay. So we've talked about quarterback. We're not convinced quarterback is a position of need. We've talked about offensive line generally. And it's well obviously mentioned, Shaq Mason has also departed. So actually there are several spaces to fill in those trenches. And it probably wasn't the position of strength it was a few years ago. Centre, guard, tackle. Everyone seems to so far have been talking about tackles. Are there any particular players you fancy, any particular positions of need or not need?
I mean, looking at who's likely to be there, Darnell Wright is obviously key, that he's really on the edge and could really be there at 19. I think Roderick Jones might well have gone by then. I think the most important thing is whoever we pick in that position has 100% got to be a starter on game one. We can't raise this pick. It's got to be someone that suits up day one.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. Those are the two players that will probably get down that low. If Paris Johnson happens to drop, the tackle from OSU, maybe. The boy from Northwestern will be gone to Chicago because that's a hometown boy. So, those two guys are not likely to drop down there. There's a couple of others further down we can look at then as well.
But bear in mind, Jason Light has been really, really good at drafting O-linemen over the years. If you you think about the Ali Marpets of this world, the Alex Kappas of this world, even Donovan Smith to a point. He knows a thing or two about O-line play, and he took Gadecki last year. Gadecki was a right tackle in college. Is that an option? Move Worth, put Gadecki in at right, and then you solve the tackle problems. You've already got a shed load of players coming back in Hainsey and Walton and Leverett and all the other guys, Stinney. So, is it quite the position they need, we think?
Yeah, I believe it is. There's a couple of those guys wouldn't normally make the team. You mentioned some of those smaller school players. There's a boy called Cody March out of North Dakota State. Not the best looking guy in the world, but no teeth, long hair. But
there's Timothy.
Sorry, Tim, you've just swiped. Is it swipe left or right? I don't know which way. I'm not on any dating apps, but whichever way you swiped, you just swiped him out of existence, didn't you?
But let me he you see a bit of tape of him, not a great lot, and he dominated again at that level. He was a bit like Ali Marpet, Alex Kappa, small.
I mean, Ali Marpet from Hobart. I mean, everyone thought that was in Australia when when that call came up.
If as Gary said, Jason Light seems to pick these players out. He likes these, small school players. Luke Gadecki was a small school player as well. He seems to like those types of players.
I guess the challenge is, if you're going to go for a small school player, wouldn't you be better leaving that to number 50 in the second round?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which okay, so let's stick with that. So we're going to go O-line. We're going to go small school. It's going to be our second round pick. So kind of, which other positions are you up for consideration for that first round pick then? No to QB, no to O-line. We talked about Shaq Barrett, maybe edge rush. That seems to be the popular choice.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah,
without a doubt. If Shaq Barrett doesn't come back at 100%, you've got Joe Tryon.
Shoyanka.
Who I can never pronounce the last
JTS
bit.
is fine.
He was. Let's be frank. He was awful last year. Logan Hall was anonymous. There was a report yesterday of Bruce Arians' family foundation fundraiser they had, and JPP was there.
Ooh.
Apparently still wants to play and was deep in conversation with a lot of the coaches. You know, wouldn't you just love that? A nice cheap couple of million.
Now, remind me, where did he sign? Was it the Rams?
Baltimore.
Baltimore. He didn't get a lot of playing time, did he?
He played in every game.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's 34, something like that.
So he's not going to be a first down stud of the roster anymore, is he? But he could be situational.
Yeah,
come on for third and long and pin back.
If he can play 25% of downs, something like that, yeah.
I mean, on one leg at 34 years of age, he's better than JTS.
I'm not quite sure they'll go back. They'll go back down that road. To be truthful, there's got to be some younger guys. Obviously, the big couple will already. Will Anderson will be well gone. Tyree Wilson will be well gone. The other one could be is Lucas Van Ness. Might still be around. That they talk about. I haven't seen him play, but they talk about him. But is it a first round pick? I'd still rather go the other way. Look for a pass rusher in the second round.
Interesting. What about you, David? Any particular one sort of jumps off the bench for you?
I mean, Derek Hall of Auburn is likely to just be around that sort of mark then, I think, potentially. So much depends on how much pans out on the early picks, doesn't it, really?
It does. And it's hard psychologically as a fan, certainly from my perspective, where I know almost nothing about college football. I know I've been reading the mock draft, so that's where the names start to get familiar. There's a sort of psychology. I remember when we had Worths that, we're getting the fourth or fifth tackle off the board, clearly it's going to be rubbish then, isn't it? And as you see, a lot of the edge rushers are really valued, but that's just the stock of the position, not necessarily a relativity of the grade of the skill, is it? If you get that's the fifth, if you got the fifth best edge rusher, that's the fifth best player that coming out, the fifth best sackmeister coming out of how many colleges in that year? They're still going to be a damn good player.
Yeah, and we all know draft players hit or miss. You can get the 1, 2, or 3, and they might not even make it. So everything's a bit of a lottery, isn't it? But yeah.
So let's stick with that defensive side of the ball, because I think a lot of the collective wisdom is maybe that we can either go to the trenches next or the secondary. Where else would you dive if you had to?
Well, Jason Light loves secondary, doesn't he? How many of his draft picks have he used in the last 5 years?
It's like a lottery ticket. You're going to hit eventually, aren't you?
Yeah, I was looking at the defensive backfield earlier. It starts with Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis, fine. Then it goes Zion McCollum, Don Gardner, Anthony Chesley, Dee Delaney, and a guy called Deron Lowe.
Yeah, I mean, McCollum was a draft pick this time last year, and it gets thin really quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's very thin. It's very thin at safety as well, to be truthful. So you could go any one of those real...
Well, they got Ryan Neal in just so they didn't have to change the jersey.
Yeah. But you've only got Winfield, and unfortunately Winfield, as we know, is... although a great player, subject to a few injuries and so on. So there is depth required at safety as well.
Yeah, so without a doubt. He, as you say, Jason Light loves the secondary players. He's got a history of cornerbacks in sort of second, third, and fourth round. So you just know that he's going to do something there, and that's where he's liable to move about in the draft, pick up another pick or two. He did that for Zion McCollum, didn't he, last year?
And I guess, as you're saying there, Gary, what that means is Jason Light isn't averse to sort of double dipping. For I must admit, for the draft competition, more on that later on a forum this year. I've said I think we're going to double dip O-line. I'm not sure necessarily 1 and 2 or even number 1, but so I think secondary, like you say, we've got form for going back for multiple players. Do you feel like that's a prudent use of picks?
Well, he did it in 4 or 5 years ago with MJ Stewart and Carlton Davis. And yes, he had one big hit there. But the draft is a crapshoot, as they say, isn't it? Yeah. You've got Ryan Leaf going second. You've got Tom Brady going 199. That just proves what a crapshoot it is. So, as you said earlier, throw enough at the wall and some of it will stick. So.
David, would you agree that secondary is the sort of the next thing behind edge rusher on the D? Or because we've lost Nacho up front, we still never really replaced Sue. The trenches, the other side could be an area of need, perhaps.
Well, it is, but I mean, the difficulty is there's just so many needs, and as Tim was saying, the secondary we are so short that we do there. Yeah, great. Put more people, get more up the defence trenches, and we don't need so much secondary. But we're relying on an awful lot of young and inexperienced players out there, and unfortunately, I say it goes back to the whole strategy of do we even need to collate more picks? We have just got so many holes to fill.
Yeah, you just need that deal to come onto the table, and who knows? Yeah, we could trade back. We did it last year for Logan Hall. We waited up for 4 hours watching the draft, and then we trade out right at the end. But
yeah, so a few people went to bed both drunk, tired, and disappointed.
Yeah.
So don't forget, there's also the unofficial 8th round of the draft. The free agents afterwards,
yeah.
and there's loads still out there. I mean, we've mentioned 2 in JPP and Sue. No, you're probably right; they're not coming because Bowles has stated we want to get younger and faster, don't we? But there's bound to be others. Isn't Clowney still out there as well? No one signed him, I don't think. So they might well pick up a couple of little gems afterwards.
I guess it's a question of salary cap at that point.
Yeah.
Which always seems to feel a little bit pinched this time. So let's go back to the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to put this out here, and I'm hoping I get a round of nods. We're okay at wide receiver.
No.
Oh, okay.
We've got Evans, we've got Godwin. Then what have we got?
Gage is okay if he can stay fit.
Is okay.
Yeah, but he's liable to injury. Well, in fact, in fairness, Mike Evans is liable to injury now.
Yeah.
And, Godwin, we could lose 2 or 3 of them at any time. That's another huge area where we need depth. And what we do need is we need a lot of pace. We need someone downfield threat as well.
Yeah, you've got to look at most teams in this league. Once you get beyond the 3rd receiver, really do, it's anybody and everybody out there. We're no different to any other team there. I wouldn't even touch wide receiver. No. Wouldn't even touch tight end in this draft. There is much more pressing needs that we need to find a depth to.
I mean, 12 months ago, receiver wasn't an issue, was it? We had these young players, Tompkins and Geiger and, probably half a dozen others. And quite frankly, any of them could have made the team. So, we'll be fine, with the free agents they pick up, with the low round draft picks. There's bound to still be receivers available for rounds 5, 6, and 7. So I'm not bothered about the wide receiver position.
And Tim, I guess you mentioned you in the same breath not bothered about tight ends either. Say a bit more about that, because I'm still got a little black armband on for Cam Brate.
Yes, Cam Brate is a Bucs legend of the last few years, but I was impressed with Otton last year. He looks to be a decent pass catching tight end. O'Keefe can do the blocking side of the game. Yeah. Not an area of need. Yeah, you might throw a 7th rounder at somebody, maybe, or one of the free agents out there. There are quite a few tight ends in this draft, but the decent ones will be gone, or they'll go in the 1st and 2nd round when we can't afford to draft one there.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's other than tackles and edge rushers. It seems to be there do seem to be a lot of tight ends named in those mocks.
Yeah, and we're not in a position to take one of them, and we don't need to.
I think we need a reality that we can't fill everything. This isn't going to be a 1-year fix.
I just wonder, though, thinking logically, and this is where I'm in danger already, new quarterback position, below average offensive line, in my mind, equals good pass-catching tight end as a safety valve. So if I can't get the best lineman or at least the caliber that I think are going to be starting day one, I might look at tight end. Because
potentially
it could, not only is it an extra lineman, but if it's that pressure and you can build a relationship with whoever is under center and whether they stay under center, that could be valuable.
You look at what Chris Godwin did last year. Most of his catches were short, tight end type
Yeah.
plays, wide receiver screens and so on. That's our outlet that way.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost dedicated to a slot receiving role now, or even taking the ball in the backfield.
Yeah.
You know, we need something else out.
Don't forget, we've got running backs that can catch as well. Rashad White was pretty good, and you know, you mentioned K-Dot, he was fantastic last year, wasn't he? So yeah, I agree with Tim to a point. I can see us throwing a 6th or a 7th at a tight end, but there's far more pressing needs than tight end, without a doubt.
I would rather draft 3 offensive linemen and 3 defensive backfield pass rushers before we get anywhere near, and that could be all our draft, and I'd be happy to walk out to that.
Well, there's one side of the ball we haven't talked about yet.
5 kickers.
Now, I think we're okay for punter. That one you've got to agree with me on.
Yeah.
No punters allowed. But then, obviously, we've lost Suckup. Now, drafting kickers, as we know, interesting experience for the Bucs.
Well, we brought in Chase McLaughlin, haven't we?
Yeah. I think interesting is another word for painful, isn't it, Kieron?
Could be.
To be truthful, you know, we don't draft, you know, kickers. You look at the kickers in league history, how many of them were drafted in the first round? You take out Janikowski, name another first-round kicker, second-round kicker who's done really well.
I wasn't thinking first or second round, but I'm thinking back to Gary's point around, you know, free agency is clearly where you're going to find a lot of kickers. However, are they going to want to come to Tampa? When Tom was here, free agents wanted to come to Tampa. You know, if I'm weighing up, do I go to the Raiders, new stadium, jazzy lights? Tampa's always suffered in terms of having the attraction of being a free agent hub. And I just wonder whether, you know, the Mr. Irrelevant type sort of scenario might be where you just snaffle someone up. I can't remember. I think Michael Houston kind of was sort of one of those sort of examples where back in the day we took a solid kicker in the draft rather than risking going out to free agency.
Yeah. Well, Suckup was Mr. Irrelevant back many years ago for Tennessee. You know, it does what kickers are all around it. And you never quite know. We thought Aguero, apart from Gary, could be the answer, but Gary said he'd never kick in this league. It was unfortunately quite correct in that assumption.
Gary is the kicking whisperer. We know he knows what a good kicker looks like.
My mother could have told you that Aguayo was never going to make an NFL kicker.
Well, I won't ask why.
The thing about your point about do they want to come to Tampa, though, Kieron, surely where they would want to go is somewhere where they've got a shout of sporting chance of winning the job. You know, you're not going to go to Baltimore, for example, are you? Or any of the other teams that have got a solid kicker. So, you know, McLaughlin's, you know, he's got a fair chance of being cut if somebody beats him out. It'll just be, as you say, a free agent that they pick up. I mean, where's Jose Borregales that they loved last year?
Yeah.
I mean, he might be knocking around somewhere. I have no idea where he is.
Yeah, he's nowhere at this moment. Probably back it down in Miami somewhere, I would have thought. But yeah, we thought enough of him last year. Just used to be dropped at this time. So
okay,
yeah,
so
it'll be interesting to see how many of them can kick it through the half.
In your head, get ready for your predictions. I'm going to come back to them, but before we do the predictions, we'll just do a bit of a club update. So I mentioned the draft competition. If you remember, get onto the forum, get your entry in. The prize this year is fantastic. All you got to do is throw 3 darts in the dartboard and work out which positions you think the Bucs are going to pick, 1, 2, and 3. And if your darts are closer to the ball than anybody else's, you are the winner. So get yourself on the forum and do that. And maybe, David, if you just want to say about the upcoming AGM.
Yep, so we're going back to the venue we had last year. It's Saturday, the 24th of June. So we'll be drinking plenty of beers, a bit of an AGM. We've got a private function room for the whole day. So in the evening, we'll be having plenty of quizzes, lots of fun.
Rumour has it that Buccaneer Cornhole comp could be back.
Absolutely, definitely is. We've got some defending champions who want to retain their title, so all comers welcome. So yeah, tickets will be going on sale soon. So details will be in the next next club email.
So members, check your emails. If you're not a member in the UK, that's a really good chance to come along and meet us all face to face. We are very, very friendly. We do not bite. If you're a Bucs fan, you need to be in the Bucs UK. So come and say hello. Right. So closing thoughts. I think we've covered a lot of ground quite quickly because I think, as you say, some of these things are open and booked. Some of them, I think we know roughly where they're going to be addressed. But I'm going to kind of this is put your money where your mouth is time. That round one, whether it's pick 19 or not, however you see it panning out, what position, and if you're both so bold, what player do you think we're going to go with? Gary, I'll come to you first.
Well, I think we should go edge rusher, outside linebacker, however you define it. That should be the first pick, I believe. I saw a mock draft today that mocked a guy called Miles Murphy. Don't know anything about him.
Clemson.
From Clemson.
From Clemson. And Tim mentioned Lucas Van Ness, who may well be still available at 19. You never know, do you? Because you don't know who the 18 previous teams are going to pick. But I'd like us to go with a good, solid 6'6", 280-pound, very quick outside linebacker stroke edge rusher.
Yeah, it's hard when we're in that 3-4 style. I think it's not quite what we've been used to over the 4-3 years, is it? Okay, Tim.
Well, I'm going to go the other way. I'm still going to go for a 6'5", 6'6" guy, but they're going to weigh in at about 330 pounds. So they're not going to be rushing the passer any day. And these are the picks I gave to Phil for the podcast the other day when he was doing it. And I would like us to take either Broderick Jones, which would keep Worse on the right-hand side, or then you take Darnell Wright and move him over.
So right's not wrong, but he will be on the left.
Yeah.
To be clear. Okay. All right. I get it. Clear as mud. David.
Yeah. Again, for me, I think offensive line got to get a tackle to replace Donovan Swift. My real worry is the likes of Jones and Wright are going to go before we get a chance. I think some of the quarterbacks are dropping a little bit, and I think Anton Harrison might be what's best left on the board come the time we get to pick. So I think it'll be Anton Harrison.
Ooh,
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go back to my original thing. I don't think those linemen are there. Every mock draft I've had seen tackles flying off the ball left, right, and centre. So I've kind of convinced myself of my own logic that we should go for a tight end. Now, who that is like literally pin sticking. So, but I like the name Dalton Kincaid. He's just got the best name. So
Yes.
I don't know if he'll be there when we're still picking, but I would say Kincaid is the chap for us. And if it happens, I really wish I put some money on when I'm watching this back. So because I don't think it's going to go that way, but that's how I would do it. So you've heard our view.
If we're picking on names, Kieran, then I'd like to suggest DeMarvion Overshawn or Overshawn. I mean,
Fair enough.
What do their parents think of?
So that's Gary Botley at 23. The road. I won't come knocking for you. So you've heard our take on it. We were sure that there were 4 of us and 5 opinions. So chip in and give us yours as well in the comments. Make sure you hit subscribe and like. And I say, if you're not a member, head over to bucsuk.org and click on join. Thank you, David, Tim, and Gary. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time to pour over what really did happen in the draft. And as ever, go Bucs!
Go Bucs!
Go Bucs!